Hello. Oh, that kind of works. Hello. It kind of works because I can see the microphone moving, like being seen.
Like,
There you go.
oh, now.
There you go. Okay, we're gonna get started now.
Yes, sorry for the wait. Oh, there is one person. That person is me. I was like, who's
Oh.
in the live? It's me.
And then if you want to follow along, we have like the actual presentation printed out and then like.
Yeah, we'll give those towards the end, but the slides we can give you now, so you can. Here, actually,
Yeah.
keep the flags right here. Yes.
You can follow along with it.
Oh.
You want?
No.
No. We're good. So thank you for coming to our Adult Wellness Workshop. These are ran by our team at CAPS, the Mental Wellness Peer Educators. It's a 5-part series. We also have like sleep, stress, mood.
Thought and then
Thought.
emotional intelligence.
Emotional intelligence, yeah. And we just want to say like, this should not be a substitute for like therapy, and we recommend students to actually utilize like our services at CAPS instead. But this is a great way just to learn about the topic in general, learning about like coping mechanisms for it as well. And my name is Amy.
My name is Sophia.
And moving on, these are objectives for the presentation today. We'll learn how thoughts impact feelings and behaviors. We'll learn about unhelpful thinking patterns, also known as cognitive distortions. And finally, we'll learn how to change or reframe negative thoughts and increase positive self-talk.
So first we're going to define what worry is. So worry is basically just unpleasant thoughts. And as humans, we have worries all the time. This can be something as simple as like, oh, I gotta make it to class on time, or I hope, that my assignment goes well. As humans, we're always worrying in little ways, but too much worry can also lead to like various change in our bodies, as does like stress. Stress as well causes various changes in our body, to things like our mood, our thought, our sleep. And so it's good to just be aware and first like obviously define what worries can look like, because we tend to think of worries as just like as always a bad thing, but as humans we're always just being prepared, we're always thinking. But we just want to go deeper and explore what those worries can look like in this presentation. So, even though we do have our thoughts, we also want to say you are not your thoughts. We're going to look a little bit more at that. So watch this video. If you have any thoughts, no pun intended, if you have any thoughts about it, you have any comments, be sure to keep them and we'll discuss it a little bit further after.
You are not your thoughts. Every day we have thousands of thoughts, emotions, urges, memories, and feelings. From the time we wake up in the morning, all throughout the day, to when we lay down to sleep at night. No matter who we are, we all have thoughts swirling around in our heads. We even think and feel in our dreams. Often, we don't realize how many thoughts we are having, and we get lost in them. Sometimes we're not even aware that we're thinking. We seem to be swimming in a sea of our own thoughts. When we are surrounded by our thoughts, it's easy to get caught up in them and react automatically. Sometimes in ways we don't even need to react. We might hold on to some thoughts, even when we don't want to. And it can feel like our thoughts are overwhelming. But thoughts are not facts, and they are not always true, even if they seem to be. Next time you feel caught up in your thoughts, try paying attention to them with curiosity and not judgment. It doesn't matter if they are true or false, right or wrong, just notice them. How fast or slow are they? Are they all very different from each other? Or perhaps you're having the same ones over and over again. Maybe they're even focused on one theme. Some of these thoughts may be unwanted. But instead of reacting to them, notice what happens to your body sensations and your emotions when you have these thoughts. Perhaps you will notice if they are bringing you closer to or further away from what is important to you or the goals you have for yourself. Observing your thoughts is a skill that takes practice, like playing an instrument. Sometimes it'll be easy for you to be able to notice and respond to your thoughts. Other times, you might have to work really hard to get some distance from them. You might even have to keep letting go of the same unwanted thought over and over again. Don't give up. Keep trying. Like waves in the ocean, thoughts are always passing through our minds and can affect how we feel and what we do. But they are not us, and we are not our thoughts. Learning to be aware of our thoughts can allow us to respond with more choice instead of reacting in ways we may regret. Observing our thoughts gives us some distance to see how our thoughts make us feel. We can then choose to act in ways that bring us closer to the things and the people that are important to us. Remember, you are not your thoughts. Try observing your thoughts with curiosity. Try it right now.
We just kind of watched that video, so I don't know if you had any, I keep saying if you have any thoughts about it. If you have any comments that you want to say, you're welcome to. If there was something that maybe stood out to you. Yeah. That's a really, I like that
That's
quote.
actually a really good
That's
quote, yeah.
actually- I like quotes that rhyme, because it makes you remember stuff. And that's really a good one, to not absorb it, to not like, like you aren't your thoughts, of even just like kind of, I don't know, well, obviously you saw the video, but like how the thoughts were just kind of passing by. We don't make any judgments on them, we're just looking at them, so that's like a great way to like look at it, especially like a little rhyme. So yeah, it's like, I like that quote.
Thank you for sharing. And then we'll be talking about automatic thoughts. These are the initial thoughts, beliefs, and judgments that can impact emotions and behaviors. Like in the diagram, you can see like the arrows like that they point back and forth to thought, feelings, and behavior in the situation. And this just shows how like they all influence each other, and it can be a cycle. There's no like certain starting point anywhere. They can start with our thoughts, and it can lead to like how we feel and influence what we do.
So yeah, this is like an example of what she just explained. So like she said, it's a cycle. So let's say someone thinks like, I'm stupid, I'm definitely gonna fail this exam. So that's their thought. And then that thought might make them feel, feeling sad, I'm feeling stressed, frustrated, however it may be. And then because they're starting to feel stressed and frustrated and all that, they end up choosing a behavior and choosing to not study and instead hang out with friends, because maybe they, they're just feeling too frustrated to focus on the math. They think that they're not going to be able to do it. And then again, that cycle repeats, because then maybe they didn't do so well in the exam because they were hanging out with friends. And so that reinforces that thought that, I'm stupid, I'm going to fail this exam. So it's kind of like a loop. Sometimes we kind of get stuck in it. And so it's good to look at this to kind of see how each component affects the other one. So yeah, we're going to kind of be observing a little bit more of like different thought patterns too. This video more about automatic thoughts. So kind of what Amy just explained, it's just going to kind of and sometimes it's easier to see an example. And so if you have any comments that you'd like to say after too as well, we're gonna get started and watch this.
Today, we're going to talk about ATs, also known as static thoughts. They're those destructive and unreasonably negative thoughts that you have that make things go from bad to worse. Avoiding ATs feels as impossible as avoiding red lights when you're running late. You're gonna hit one or two, or every single light from your house to work on that morning that your report's due at 9 a.m. and your boss is already on the edge and you might just get fired and then get evicted and see? Automatic thoughts can pop up and escalate as easy as that. Regardless of reality, ATs are the things that help you build a couple of red lights up to an Armageddon scale catastrophe in a matter of seconds. Today on Wellcast, we're going to show you how to manage those harmful automatic thoughts with healthier, rational ones. We're going to use our triple R exercise. You are going to record, rationalize, and replace your ATs. But first, how serious are ATs? A study at UCLA shows that people who got caught in cycles of automatic negative thinking became clinically depressed, self-critical, and less successful in both their work and personal lives. According to Dr. Glenn Scaraldi, these negative, disordered ATs fall into 13 categories, all of which take a toll on your mental health. Here are some of the categories. Assuming or mind reading. Like when you are sure someone is mad at you, even though you haven't spoken to them just because they walked in and didn't say hi. Shoulds, must, and oughts. Those are the insane demands that we make upon ourselves in our quest to be impossibly imperfect. The fairy tale fantasy, where we demand an ideal for our life and decide that anything less than that ideal just isn't fair. Overgeneralizing. Nobody likes me. I always ruin everything. And finally, catastrophizing. When you take a little problem and turn it into a big, terrible, life-changing event. How do we stop ATs? Good question. And the shorter answer is we don't. But by being conscious of the fact that we're having them and working to replace them with rational thoughts, we can keep them from endangering our mental health. And that is today's exercise. All right, everybody, take out your Wellcast journal. It's time to learn the 3 R's. Step 1, record an upsetting event. When something upsetting happens during the day, describe it in your Wellcast journal and record it in excruciating, painful detail. For example, today I found out that I got a C on my return. Step 2, rationalize. Now it's time to think about the automatic thoughts associated with the event. Pause and print this chart. In column 1, write down each AT you had about the upsetting event. For example, I am never going to graduate. In the second column, try and label each distortion. Some ATs might be rational, but most won't be. They'll most often fall into one of the categories we discussed. I am never going to graduate falls into the category of catastrophizing. Step 3, replace. In the third column, respond to each distorted AT. Talk back. Get those negative thoughts off your chest. And if it's hard to do that, try to imagine what you'd say to a friend who is struggling with their own AT and say it to yourself. When you're responding to those ATs, ask yourself some questions like, what's the evidence for this response? Is this a believable outcome for my situation? Will the world end if I get a C on this midterm? Of course not. So as time goes on and you're more used to responding to your ATs instead of letting them take over your life, you should be able to replace those ugly negative thoughts with more rational ones. Let's recap. To keep your automatic thoughts from ruining your mood and running rampant, you're going to record upsetting events, rationalize them by addressing each irrational thought, and replacing the irrational automatic thought with a rational one. The world is not going to end.
Tweet us at Watch Wellcast.
So yeah, I don't know, I'm like, usually I would ask for more, I know you're the only one here, but if you have any comments or you're like, what, you have a question about it,
Like,
like,
you don't have to, it's optional.
I know, it's okay.
It's just something like, more people come like as a month school first?
It
It
depends.
depends. I think right now, like, it just depends when we have it. I know right now, like, at least for me, even like my classes are starting to have like the first exams for the class. I feel like maybe students are less
Sometimes.
inclined to do it. And sometimes I know some of them are scared to go in person. So then some people do it on YouTube Live instead, because we always do it on YouTube Live and then you can just watch it from wherever you like. Cause I know it can be a little awkward. It's like you show up, then you're like the only one.
But yeah, it just depends. Sometimes there's workshops where students like trickled in later and I'm like, whoa. So it just kind of depends on each workshop and what day of the week it is. But yeah, we can go to the next one.
So we'll be talking about unhelpful thinking styles. There's 11 in there, so just hang in there with us as we go through them. The first one is magnification and minimization. It's when you're either blowing things out of proportion or shrinking them. And an example of this is, let's say like, I don't know, you have like an A in your class, but then you fail like one exam. And all you do is just focus on that one exam, and all you do is focus on that negative instead of like patting yourself on the back and being like, you know what, despite me not doing well on this last exam, I still have an A in class, I still have a good grade, you know.
So next we have overgeneralizing, so that's concluding that what happened to you once will happen to you again. So maybe you had a relationship that didn't go too well, and so now that's gonna like that will go into the future relationship. So maybe they had a bad relationship that maybe might look like, oh, what's the point of getting into another one because all of the relationships I get in are bad. Or maybe having a future career, maybe you didn't have so much of a good time at a place that you were working at, and so now you're gonna assume every single place that you work at is gonna be that way. So it kind of applies to just putting like a sweeping generalization brush over everything and assuming it's gonna happen again and again, even though we might not have evidence for that yet. Next we have personalization. So that's when you conclude that every negative event is your fault. So it could be something like, I think if there's one that it's like my roommate, like if I had just picked up and done what I was supposed to do, my roommate wouldn't be mad at me. And it could be that maybe your roommate is having their own bad day, and so they might be upset about something else, and it doesn't necessarily have to be something that you did. So that this is kind of just turning things to look at, you know, what did I do? So that person's kind of holding the earth, and saying like, what happened to me is my fault, even though the earth is so big. And it could really be anything. So yeah.
The next one is mind reading. It's when you assume that you know what the other person is thinking. A good example of this, from my personal experience, I've had it where like I plan to hang out with like my friend and then last minute they cancel and I'm like, man, they must hate me. Man, I did something to make them mad. But then most likely, like I've like canceled people last minute, and if I put that in perspective, most likely maybe they like procrastinated and did homework last minute, you know, something like that. Like in reality, it's not because like they hate you or like they don't like you or you did something to upset them. It's probably due to like their own personal issues or something that they're doing. The next one is fortune telling. It's when you predict that something bad is about to happen and you consider it a fact. It's when you think like these thoughts, these predictions that you make yourself think that it's actually gonna happen, that they're reality.
Maybe not this one, but the
That's kind of real right now, but
yeah.
that's okay. But a good example is, let's say you feel like you're awkward, so you think like, because you feel like you're awkward, that you're unable to make friends.
This one is called labeling and mislabeling. So you create a negative self-image based on yourself or something, maybe a mistake you made in the past. This can also apply to labeling others. So like we have this example, maybe this person failed once or they didn't do something too well, and so they're gonna label themselves as a loser. Oh, I'm a loser because, you know, I didn't do something well once. Maybe you were late for 10 minutes, something happened, and maybe you're late at work or school. So now you think, oh, I'm irresponsible, I don't really put effort. And then we have maybe that you didn't respond the way you wanted to. Sometimes you have an off day, maybe you say something that rubs someone the wrong way, you might feel like a jerk, and so now I'm just a jerk. So it's basically just taking that one negative aspect or something that happened and just creating a label for yourself. That's why it's different. We also have emotional reasoning, so you accept your emotions as evidence for the truth. So this one doesn't really it comes from more of like kind of like instead of thinking with our hearts instead of our minds sometimes. Similar to like not really using any evidence. So you might not look at, hey, kind of like what Amy was talking about earlier, oh, my friends might be busy, they might have school, we might take it as just thinking kind of with our heart. This can look like kind of using a similar wording, but this can look like, oh, I feel like a loser, so I am a loser. That would be using like well, you feel like, but maybe you're not, maybe there's evidence just to suggest that, like, there's no evidence to suggest that you're a loser. I hope I'm making sense of that, but, this one's just using your, emotions more than using logic.
The next one is disqualifying the positive. It's when you transform neutral or positive experiences into negative. A good example, just kind of similar to like the one I mentioned earlier in the beginning. You know, let's say like you passed an exam, but then you just think you passed the exam because you got lucky. You know, you're like, oh, it's just multiple choice, you know, I got lucky guessing the answers, but most likely it's like because you knew the information. Maybe you like studied really hard and you did all your homework, so you knew what the class was about, you know what the exam was about. But instead, like in the scenario where you're disqualifying the positive, it's like you're lessening the value of you getting a high grade due to something like luck instead of like your actual hard work and just. The next one is should statements. It's when you create pressure to yourself by saying I should do this or I must do that. Saying these statements to yourself can lead to like failure and feelings of frustration, shame, and guilt, because sometimes it creates all these pressures and expectations for yourself without considering, you know, things that you're just dealing in your daily life, like your mental health and your energy levels and anything going on in your life. But I think a good, you know, substitution instead of saying I should do this is like I'm going to try to do this. And if I don't today, then that's okay. I'll try to do it the next day instead of like forcing this mindset, like, oh, I have to do this today or else, you know, I'm not good enough or something like that.
So we're getting through it, we're almost to the end. We have all or nothing thinking, so you interpret events as either good or bad, there's no in between. You might have also heard of this as black and white thinking, so there's no, thinking black and white, there's no gray area, so there's no kind of like middle. So this can be looking at something as everything's all good or everything's all bad, or you don't really have an area in the middle to kind of have a middle ground. So we're gonna use this example of all or nothing thinking. So we have a person who has one success, they have two successes, and then they don't do so well the last time, and they're just gonna focus on that. They're gonna say, well, I've never had any, I've always been a failure, like, you know, I've always failed, but it's not necessarily true, just didn't do so well the last time, but they're painting it kind of like completely everything's all bad. Even though it might be more great. We learned a little bit, and that's why we like to kind of be in the middle between black and gray, black and white. And so this is kind of an example of it. Again, it doesn't just have to be with career, you know, I keep using career, but it's with relationships, school, even just like family life. So yeah. And then we have this is a mental filter, so perceiving, like you perceive the negative in any situation and you dwell on it. So again, it would be, like, for example, just completely disregarding all the positive of it, we're just gonna look at it, well, maybe all these positive things happen, but we're just gonna look at every single negative aspect of it. So your mind's almost filtering out, all the good stuff that might happen just to focus on the bad, and it literally is like a filter. I like to think of like photo filter, then everything kind of changes, you're not looking at it the same. And so that's why we have this person with the axe who's like chopping down everything, because when we're viewing things from a negative filter, sometimes we don't get to fully experience like the positives and be able to celebrate our little accomplishments throughout the day. Yeah.
So that was the last one, thankfully, but this kind of challenging our negative thoughts and these questions kind of refer back to like that video we watched about automatic thoughts, where they said the 3 R's were recognize, right? No, recognize, record, and reframe. So this would be like the part where you would reframe. You can ask yourself these questions like, is there a more positive, realistic way of looking at the situation? What's the worst case scenario? And some that I've used personally is like, what would I say to a friend who had thought this? Or for every negative what if, you rehearse a positive what if for it. And then the next slide, kind of same situation, just more questions that you could ask yourself. Like, what is the worst thing that could happen and the chances of that actually happening? What is the best thing that could happen in this scenario? And what are the chances of that happening? And a good one that I like to use for myself is like, will this actually matter in 5 years' time? Like in a scenario where, let's say I like forget to study and I like bomb an exam and I'm like, okay, if I'm being for real, like 5 years from now, am I really gonna care about the exam? Like most likely, no. And, but the whole purpose of these like questions is just to help reframe these negative thoughts and take away like the power that they hold in your brain and kind of instilling like the evidence like from reality to help you think either at least more neutrally in your mind or even positively.
And next we're gonna talk about being kind to yourself. So we love to use this quote by Kristen Neff, which is basically instead of mercilessly judging yourself for various shortcomings and inadequacies, self-compassion means you're kind and understanding when confronted with personal failings. So just sometimes there are moments where we really just, it's our brain is always with us and our brain's always gonna be thinking. And there's gonna be times where we're really beating ourselves down for maybe things that didn't go so well. And sometimes you don't have to fully shovel, like, I have to be positive, to be positive. Sometimes you can just be understanding and be like, you know what? Maybe I didn't do so well, but I really tried and you can have a little bit of understanding. So it's not necessarily that we're like, we also want to refrain from being super toxic positive. We want to be able to just have the understanding, same way if a friend messed up, we might have that understanding with them. We want to have that for ourselves. And just being able to have a little grace and have a little like missed up first attempt at learning, you know. We also have the self-compassion like scale, and right here this website, they have different, I don't know if they're gonna go into the next slide. If they do, that's great. But you're welcome to visit this website. It talks a little bit more about like a kind of like a scale that you can go through to see kind of where you are with self-compassion. Maybe if you don't score the way that you wanted to, it teaches you like different ways that you could practice it every day. People like to do like post-it notes with like little messages, and they don't have to be anything big. They can be like, I love the way I fold towels. Like something like simple like that. It can be, oh, I make my friends laugh. So there's a lot of different ways it can look different for everyone. Oh, perfect. So it's just what I was talking about. So if you wanted to, you're welcome to scan it. This is a self-compassion scale. So it is almost like a little mini assessment, kind of assessing where you might be in for self-compassion. And there's like a lot of different ways that you can look at it. And then we have the this worksheet. That's also another, this is all just self-compassion based. This is the worksheet that you can do. I believe it might be printable. And then just like I was talking about, positive affirmations have a huge impact. This can again be like the messages I said, or it can also just be something to help you reflect on the day. So even if you like, some people like to journal, if you like to journal, you can write down how it's impacted your day. And yeah.
So this is one of our online resources that we recommend to students, u.fullerton.edu. It's just a good website to go to look for tips and tools in different areas of life, like mental health, health in general, relationships, boundaries. They provide like articles and like coping mechanisms that are like backed by evidence and by professionals. And then we don't have to watch that. It's just an example of something that you can find on the website.
Next we have Compass at Fullerton. So this is another online based like platform that you can use, and it's like a real compass because it points you in the direction of resources. So for example, and it could be for any kind of a crisis. It also is it's anonymous, I believe, anonymous or confidential, one of those two. It's anonymous, so maybe you're kind of worried about a friend and you're trying to find resources for them. You're able to look it up for yourself for another person. And there's some based on like, looking for housing, maybe someone who like a danger to themselves or others, immediate safety, those kinds of things. There's like and it'll direct you to on and off campus resources. So maybe someone is looking for food, it might direct them to the pantry on campus, or it might even direct them off campus to like a food like shelter kind of thing, like where they give out food. So there's a lot of different ways that you can like different things you can find on there. So you're welcome to scan this if you want to check that out. If not, you can also just go to compass.fullerton.edu. And then we have the packet right here that's to the left. And this one has just basically all the slides that we showed you. If you would like to keep the slides, pretty much this handout. Then we have the thought wellness handout that we have right here. So I think we gave you one. Yes. Yes. You get the special one. Wait, I can't, no, it's just special because it was right next to it.
You get the special.
Yay. But yeah, that's a handout, so it's everything kind of like summarized.
And then these are all the services that we offer at CAPS. At the bottom blue section is just like the online resources that we just went over, along with our CAPS website and our social media like Instagram and our YouTube. The green section is our more non-committal services, where they typically don't require an appointment. Some of them may require you to call and book like an initial screening, like our therapy groups and our case management and wellness coaching. But like our drop-in groups, our wellness room, dog therapy, like you can just stop on by whenever they're happening. In the yellow section are our services that are more committal, meaning we recommend students to attend them on a multiple session base, just so they can fully benefit from them. Students go for like our individual short-term therapy, we have psychiatry services, we have single session therapy and massage therapy as well. And in the top section is our services in red for students when they're in crisis or in distress. We have a collaboration with CAPS and UPD, we have a crisis team with them, so they can go out to students, either like, I believe it's a 1 mile radius from the campus or even on campus if students are unable to come to Titan Hall. And then we also have our 24-hour crisis support, which is also the same number for CAPS if you ever want to book an appointment. And that's available 24/7, even on weekends and the holidays, if you're ever in distress or you know someone that is. When you call that phone number, you'll be connected to a professional and they'll help create like a safety assessment and planning for you.
And, oh wait, this is still you. I was like, wait.
Well, we wanna ask, what is your favorite takeaway? But it's optional, if you wanna answer it or not.
Yes, I know we've been having you on the spotlight to ask you everything.
Just like explain.
If there's any, it's essentially just like if there's anything that maybe new information that you learned, a question you had, maybe something you thought was cool. It could really be anything, just any final takeaways, like, isn't that what takeaway
Yeah.
means? Like any last things, yeah.
Any thoughts? I guess.
Any thoughts on the thought of wellness?
Why are you guys mentioning like those resources? Like how, when most people go there, is it like they always have one or something? Or can you just like,
Typically,
What are you
they
talking about?
do like this,
Uh-huh.
but like sometimes when we host like drop-in groups like that, you can just go in. And you can ask the front desk being like, oh, like I'm here first, so they can help you like point you to the right room or direction where it's being posted. But and like the wellness room, you can stop on by whenever you like. It's in Titan Hall on the 3rd floor. We have like massage chairs and napping pods over there for students to use to relaxing. And we usually recommend students to book a slot to use them, but honestly, it's pretty empty in there. So if you ever just want to walk in, like, and then book a slot like right there and then they can help you with that. But like therapy groups, like those typically require an appointment. The stuff in the yellow section do require an appointment. So a good chunk of like our services do require appointments. But like things like our distress services and like stuff that don't require, like our like drop-in groups and such, and like this, like the wellness workshops, like they don't require any appointment. So anything that doesn't require an appointment, you just stop, come on in, but not everything requires an appointment. There we go.
Were you just talking about in general or like the individual therapy?
just in general?
Yeah, because I know some people get confused with like the individual therapy, that one's more like case by case. But for the most part, some of these you could just walk in wherever, like for example, the cell wellness, you could just walk in, but if it's, yeah, anything above, it's more making.
Any other questions?
I know like they have like individual therapy, but isn't it only limited to like 2 sessions?
Oh, no, so typically therapists will go for 5 to 6 per semester. And sometimes, depending on the therapist, I know they're a little bit more, they follow that rule a little bit more. But I've personally had like therapists there where like sometimes I needed a little bit more than that. And since like they thought I also needed it, they were able to give that to me. Yeah,
So it's case by case.
yeah.
So someone might only really like need one, it just kind of depends on the counselor and student. So,
Yeah.
yeah, because I know that there's kind of a thought that like there's 10 per person, no,
Oh,
like
like,
the
oh,
people are guaranteed 10 sessions, but that's not necessarily the case, it just kind of depends.
Yeah.
Sorry.
No, you're
No,
good.
you're
I have
good.
a question.
Mhm.
Like I know they have like this screening thing online, but tried clicking on it, it didn't work, so I was wondering like, do they do like screens? Get this in a call online?
Like the initial, when you say screening, do you mean like the initial?
Not for like therapy groups, but like if you want, just like mental health screenings in general. Like, you wanna talk
Oh,
to,
okay,
like,
I know what you're talking about, that like kind of like survey thing, right?
Yeah.
And then it's like you're rating yourself based on the statements, is that what
I
you're talking
think
about?
that's what they have on the website, but like I was just wondering like, you know, like just getting screening, like diagnosis, or do they not do that?
I believe they can, I think it depends, because we do have like various professionals, like we have like therapists, like licensed clinical therapists and mental health therapists, but then we also have like psychologists. I'm pretty sure psychologists should be qualified to diagnose mental disorders, but I'm not sure if therapists.
I would just say to be on the safe side to call the number for CAPS and ask the front desk, cause I would hate to give you like the wrong information. But if there are issues with like the link, I would let someone know. I mean, we can even let someone know if the link isn't working. But yeah, I'm not 100% sure, I would say to call, just in case, I'm sorry, I couldn't,
I know it's
yeah.
Cause typically how it works is like, I think the link is supposed to refer to, it's like kind of like the survey, and when you take it, it'll show the results of like, I guess like the intensity in various like areas of like your well-being, like eating, like related to like substance use, depression, anxiety, sleeping, like that sort of stuff, and they'll see like which areas are like worse, so they'll kind of know which to target. But in like my personal experience, they don't diagnose anything, but of course, like I would, like Sophia said, like just like calling them to double check. I feel like maybe the psychiatric services are more likely to diagnose, because then they'll be able to provide medication. So then maybe that could be an option as well. Yeah. Any other questions?
no.
Okay, no problem.
And yeah, thank you for attending. This is our Instagram. You feel free to follow us on there. That's where you can find all the updates about doggy therapy. That's usually where we post it, and the only place that we'll post it, and as well as just any other mental health posts. And then, if you can, please scan this anonymous evaluation. So basically, it just lets us know how we're doing, so that like, you know, we can prepare for the future and stuff like that. So just if you can, I'll move out of the way. Yeah. And that's our presentation.
Yeah, but we really appreciate you
Yes,
staying.
thank you for staying.
Yeah, because you really did not have to. Yeah, but we appreciate it.